Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 8th of June 2011. My name is Totalbiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming news, discussion, and all that good stuff. You can email your questions and topics for future shows to mailbox@cynicalbrit.com. The game in the background is Duke Nukem... Oh, sorry, no, it's a better game. It's Painkiller Black Edition. Oh yes, some good shooty action. This one comes in from Thomas. It says, "Hey TB, for the last few years I've seen what I personally think is a disturbing trend in games in general, especially on the lines of AAA titles." That's AAA titles, but there you go. To me, they all seem to be clones of your run-of-the-mill FPS, which is fine if you like FPS. I know in an earlier video you said that there are a lot of AAA publishers that won't risk money on a new IP, which is pretty sad to me, really. I get sick of the same old, let's clone this game and make lots of money, or make a sequel to a game I personally don't want to play. Anyway, my question to you is this: how can we as people who love video games in many forms send a message to these companies to look at other things, maybe even making some indie games AAA titles? Thanks for taking the time to read my mail. Well, to start with, if you made an indie game a AAA title, it would no longer be an indie game, but whatever. So, this is hardly a new phenomenon, under any circumstances. We've had this happen with FPS before, around the time of Quake, and of course around the time of Doom as well. There was a massive explosion in first-person shooters coming out. This is probably maybe the third or fourth major explosion of first-person shooter titles, and FPS never really goes away, certainly, but there are times when FPS seems to dominate the market. The thing is, this is not the only genre where it happens. Fighting games, for instance, around the time of Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat, there were huge numbers of fighting games. Of course, you don't remember most of them because they kind of sucked, and that's also the case with massive numbers of FPS coming out now. A lot of them are just either fairly generic or unbelievably terrible. But at this point, it's come down to the fact that AAA FPS has got so expensive to make that it's only the big companies who are making them, and you don't get all that many lower budget FPS anymore. That's actually kind of a shame, because playing a bit of Duke again, you realize that, well, oh, the graphics kind of suck, but the gunplay is so much better than Duke Nukem Forever, and this game is 12 years old, so how does that manage it? It's quite simple, really, because gunplay is not about graphics. Gunplay is about feel, and it's all about feedback on the screen as well. And yes, graphics can certainly help there. For instance, blowing a hole in a wall with a rocket launcher in Bad Company 2. That's a good piece of visual feedback, and it's fairly difficult to replicate in an inferior engine. But I'd like to point out a game by the name of Killing Floor, which actually uses the Unreal Tournament 2004 engine. So pretty outdated, but it has probably the best gunplay in any FPS I've ever played. It's as simple as that, because it is so satisfying. The guns have such weight to them. They feel really, really good. Every kill is satisfying. It doesn't feel spammy. It's the same reason why I vastly prefer Killing Floor to Left 4 Dead, for instance. Even though it's a less dynamic game, you don't move around as much. The gunplay is just so much better, and that's done in an engine, of course, that is 7 years old. So I would just like to see more FPS being done that way, with a focus on really good level design and gunplay as opposed to really high-fidelity scripted on-rails nonsense, which is what we're getting from AAA companies these days. I think perhaps that's something that indie companies or perhaps lesser-known developers and publishers could really go for on the PC, and I would hope that a lot of people would react pretty well to that. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. The point is that they are making games that people will buy. When you see the sales figures for Modern Warfare, then you understand exactly why companies are doing what they're doing. Yes, it's a fad that will eventually pass, but it's not going to do so as of yet, unfortunately. It's sticking with us for a while. But as I said before, it's happened so very much. Hell, I remember the RTS glut back in the day. That was terrible. It's like, oh my god, all people are making is real-time strategy. And now, of course, barely anybody making it. It's a passing phase. It will go. There isn't really a way to say to companies, make other games without just buying other games. That's the only thing you can do. There's no point sending them letters or emails like that as far as I'm concerned. It really comes down to, well, if they make an original IP that's good, reward them for it. For God's sake, reward them. Don't pirate it, don't bitch about it on the internet, don't nitpick its slightest flaws. For God's sake, take the pros and the cons, look at the fact that the pros vastly outweigh the cons, and buy the sodding thing. This one comes in from Philip that says, now that E3 is over and us gamers are awestruck by the demonstrations of all major companies, well, let's not go crazy here. Not all of them, but certainly some of them. Anyway, I'd like to voice my concerns about one in particular, Nintendo. Let me start by saying each time a console is released, there's a lot of hating from people who are not fans of the company itself, i.e. Sony fans ripping into Nintendo fans, or the other way around, and from people who are just trolling. What surprises me, though, is the over-the-top reaction to the Wii U. In popular gaming networks on the internet, publishers praise its qualities and innovation, while the commentators are 96%, oh my god, this console is going to fail. How Nintendo fails and the usual OMG console sucks. Usually I'm not bothered by a couple of comments like this, hell, it's to be expected, but why are there so freaking many of them? I would love to know what your opinion on the issue is, and what your thoughts are about Nintendo's new system and business options. It comes down to a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about and don't. Every gamer on the internet thinks they're some kind of expert industry guru. They do. You can tell. It's very easy to tell. All you need to do is go to Metacritic. Seriously, head over to Metacritic one day, find a fairly popular game, say, I wouldn't say Call of Duty, that might be going overboard, but, go find a fairly popular game, and go look through the user reviews. Look at how incompetent these people are. Look how much they do not know. Look at how biased they are. That is your average gamer. And you know what? It's okay. It's absolutely fine not to know the complete ins and outs of the industry. It's okay not to be hardware savvy. It's okay to like certain games and certain consoles and not others. As long as you don't shove it down the throats of other people and pretend to be more important than you really are. At the end of the day, people that comment on the internet are just one consumer out of millions, untold millions. Their opinion matters not a tiny little bit. This is what the internet has done to people. Hell, ever since LiveJournal came out, people got this impression that they were more important than they really are. Oh, everyone wants to read about my boring little life. No, they don't. Everyone wants to read about my boring game opinions. No, they don't. Especially when they're heavily biased and don't have any basis in fact. When it comes to the Wii U, at the end of the day, it's a console that is markedly more powerful than the 360 and the PS3. Thank God there's finally a new generation of consoles, because it's been taking ages. There's nothing new from Microsoft or from Sony in the home console department, and while the Vita looks very, very nice, it's very obvious at this point that the PS3 and 360 are getting out of date. My PC annihilates them. Hell, my previous PC annihilated them, and it was about a quarter as powerful as this one. So, come on. I mean, really, they are trying to drag the hardware out for a very, very long time. As far as I'm concerned, gamers should be celebrating the fact that Nintendo is finally pushing things forward, and it's not just creating a gimmicky console that's underpowered. This thing has balls! Have you seen how powerful it is? Any report from the show floor where they were checking out the real-time rendered demos and things like that, everyone has said, this thing is markedly more powerful than the 360 and PS3, and it's obvious even in the initial demos. So think about what kind of technology is there. Not to mention the fact that every major publisher that's spoken on it has said, this is a really powerful machine. And not to mention the whole aspect of the innovation there on the controllers, and people hate on the controllers. Well, oh, it's not going to be comfortable. Do you seriously think that Nintendo hasn't thought this through? Really now? It's not going to be comfortable. They have entire divisions dedicated to designing these things. They understand ergonomics more so than any gamer ever will. It's as simple as that. Of course it's going to be sodding comfortable. Again, it's just a bunch of loudmouth gamers on the internet making mass judgments about something they do not understand in any way, going off a very small amount of information that they've no doubt misinterpreted. There are massive gaps in their knowledge. And I'd like to say that this doesn't apply to real life, and people just tend to keep their mouths shut about things they don't understand, but unfortunately that is not the case, as you are well aware if you've ever had a look at US politics, or indeed the politics in many other countries as well. The US just tends to be very, very vocal about it. But there you go. As I say, I'm looking forward to the machine, and as a person that owns all the currently available consoles, I will no doubt own this one as well. The only real system bias I have is that I will play the game on the platform that plays it best. In the case of most games, that's on the PC, and then I'll alternate between 360 and PS3 depending on which version happens to run better. Some games work better on PS3, some work better on 360. It's just as simple as that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can come up with. It looks great, but of course I am reserving my final judgment for actually playing the sodding thing. This one comes in from Daldrin. It says, I was noticing some things, such as in the PlayStation show of E3, they mentioned a game called Dust 514, and how that one game will be linked to CCP's EVE Online and be able to influence that game, as well as EVE influencing Dust. It makes me wonder if CCP and PlayStation are taking the first steps in a new world of gaming where actions of one game will echo across others. Another lesser but equally important version of this is Mass Effect, where the actions of your first game affect the second, changing the game to a new experience. I'm just wondering what your thoughts on the matter are. Will these developers push forward into a new world of gaming, or will it be a bust? There's so much controversy over Dust 514, and that's specifically because you've got a console game affecting what happens in a PC game, and it's a PC game that people actually invest money in. And I don't know, CCP has some real balls to do something like that, I've got to say. I have no idea how well it's going to work. I really don't. It is disappointing to me that an MMO FPS is not coming to PC from a developer that is PC-centric. And their logic behind not doing so is a little bit questionable, to say the least. Here's a quote from Thomas Farah, that's the producer of Dust. "We're trying to expand the players that occupy New Eden, so for now we're focusing on PlayStation." This is a critical logical fallacy, and it also goes down to another quote right here by Haldor Fana, who is the Chief Technical Officer of CCP, who says, "We wanted to try and find an audience that was the diagonally opposite of what we already have, instead of trying to cannibalize what we already have." So that's initially what we're trying to do. If you look at all the people that actually tried EVE, it's a really large number. So it also tells us that there is an interest out there for people to experience this world, but the gameplay style, whether it's being on PC or whether it's how you play, it doesn't suit them. So we want to create something very different. Again, this actual logic is incredibly fallacious. There seems to be this belief that PC gamers are a certain kind of gamer and the console gamers are another kind of gamer. That's nonsense. It is absolute bollocks. Like, oh, well, PC gamers won't play these kind of games. Yes, they will. They will. The PC can play any game. That's the thing about the PC. It doesn't matter. They have access to every piece of hardware you can imagine to make that happen. Oh, but driving games don't work well on PC. Yes, they do. You plug in a steering wheel. But fighting games, you plug in a fight stick. It goes on and on and on. If it's got a USB connector, you can put it into a PC. And as a direct result of that, this whole argument is nonsense. Well, we had a lot of people try EVE. We don't want to cannibalize our current player base. Look, a lot of people tried EVE and then stopped playing. What does that tell you? Yes, EVE is pretty successful. Millions of people tried EVE and millions of people do not play it. In fact, I would say that EVE probably has a massive attrition rate in terms of new players because it is incredibly user-unfriendly. It is a brick wall of learning curve, and that style of game is actually not very interesting to a lot of people. I am not interested in playing EVE. I am interested in playing an MMO FPS. It's a completely different genre. So their argument for putting it on PS3 is nonsense. Absolute complete nonsense. They did say we're exclusive on PS3 right now, so they can't speak to what's happening in the future. But seriously, how many people have been crying out for MMO FPS since PlanetSide? For God's sake. And then a primarily PC developer decides, well, we're not going to put it on there. I think that, honestly, Dust 514 is not going to work all that well on PlayStation. People are not going to buy into it, especially if it's an MMO FPS with a subscription fee. I don't know if it is or it's not. But if you look at MAG, which was also an MMO FPS, that did not do all that well. And yes, while PS3 gamers will certainly buy it, PC gamers would buy it more. We are the primary demographic for massively multiplayer games. That is an indisputable fact. So why not cater to that demographic? I don't care about EVE, but I'm interested in having a go of Dust. And you know what? I bet there are more than 1 million gamers just like me, maybe even more than that. So that's something that CCP should really consider. This one comes in from Anonymous, who says, "What is your opinion on all the special editions of games, including extra content and collectibles, as well as games like Call of Duty with their normal, hardened, and prestige edition, or Assassin's Creed Revelations with normal, Animus, collectors, and special editions?" Well, I think they might be going a little bit overboard with the numbers, let me put it that way. But it comes down to, are collector's editions okay? Are special editions okay? And I have to say, absolutely, yes, special editions are okay. The thing about special editions is, what do they contain? For me, a special and collector's edition should either contain something cosmetic but irrelevant, like, say, a unique skin or something along those lines. It should never contain something that would give you a leg up over people that don't have it, without question. Even if it's a single unlock, they should not give that. That is unbelievably unreasonable. So I'm not happy about that. And as far as I'm concerned as well, special editions should contain physical items that are pretty damn awesome. For instance, this is the sound of me, right there, rattling my Fable 3 Special Edition for 360, which I picked up actually on the cheap. But there you go. It contains a copy of Fable 3, which I have actually yet to play because I actually don't care all that much about it, and it is in this giant book thing, yeah? It actually opens up, it's got a magnetic seal, you open it, and the game is inside it, but then underneath it, there's actually a hidden compartment which you can open up and slide out, as you can hear right there. There we go, doesn't that sound amazing? And there is a deck of Fable 3 playing cards, and there is a medallion right here, a pressed medallion, which is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty damn awesome. I mean, this is a really nice looking special edition. I'll happily buy stuff like that. I really will. I just, I like having little gaming-related trinkets, I suppose, would be the best way to describe it. That's pretty cool. And usually I will buy a special edition if it's got cool stuff in it that I like. I have several WoW Collector's Editions. I've got, of course, the StarCraft 2 Collector's Edition. Hell, the StarCraft 2 Collector's Edition was worth it for the dog tag alone. It's a freaking awesome thing. So it comes down to, yes, if you can put cool physical items in there for actual collectors, then great. I think the problem that I see is that they're not making collector's editions for collectors anymore. They're making it for people that actually want to get a leg up in the game or some kind of advantage. And you're seeing that more often than not with digital deluxe editions, as they're called, which are horrible, I might add. That's such a bad idea. Digital deluxe edition, get double experience, get half your unlocks. And I think the worst thing, I might add, is get this, and this actually comes with pre-orders as well, more often than not, but also with collector's editions. Get the digital deluxe edition, or pre-order from this vendor, and get this overpowered weapon that you won't replace for 6 hours. Like, why would I want that? Especially in RPGs, it's such a bad idea. Dragon Age was a prime example of that. Dragon Age 2 also a prime example of that. Mass Effect to a lesser degree. And it's like, well, you use this weapon, and this is better than anything you're going to get for ages. Same problem with, say, Dawn of War 2 Retribution. Stop it! Seriously, half the fun of the game is the progression. If you skip several tiers of progression, as I've said in WoW, it ceases to be enjoyable anymore. Half the fun of those games is, oh, I just got this amazing piece of loot. You get this amazing piece of loot, you find out it's way worse than the item you got through pre-ordering or getting a collector's edition, and that, to me, just affects the enjoyment I have of the game. So, balls to that. No more of that, please. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day. Thanks for watching the Mailbox. Email in mailbox@cynicalbrit.com with topics for future shows. I'll see you next time.